me, Antoine. This is Houston Live and Local. As you know, we are here Monday to Friday, bringing you guys all the updates here at 2 p.m., but also we have a second installment of our show here at 7 p.m. as well. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. Looking forward to what the week brings. And of course, we got a nice little day outside there. It's going to be warm throughout the week, so we'll talk weather in just a little bit. But keep in mind, though, for those of you who are procrastinating, Leslie, how you doing? Fill us in what's going on. Leslie, how you doing? Fill us in what's going on.
Hey Anthony, I'm doing great. So yeah, this is actually, we're in the Crosby area, but I've been out in the community trying to gather information and talk to folks here, and they tell me actually where we're standing is considered Barrett Station. So I guess from now on we're going to continue to say Crosby and Barrett Station area. But I want to step out and show you. So the shooting actually happened just behind me here at the Swift gas station Saturday evening. Harris County Sheriff says 6 people were injured and 1 person has died. Specifically, 5 males and 2 females were shot, all between the ages of 16 to 25. Now, this is on Crosby Lynchburg Road, and Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez says around 10 p.m. on Saturday, deputies were called to what was initially reported as a shooting at a parking lot takeover at this gas station here, but coming to find out about 100 people were inside the parking lot after leaving what they realized was a benefit. Take a listen to what the sheriff had to say.
It's a very chaotic scene at first. They estimate there was approximately 100 people here in this parking lot. Since then, obviously, we determined that several people had been shot. Want to say that the number's still preliminary. The count that we have right now is possibly 7 in total that were sustained some type of gunshot wounds here at the location. 5 males and 2 females, ranging in ages from 16 to 25 years old. Some were transported by ground to hospitals. 2 of the 7 were transported by Lifeline. One of the persons that was transported has been pronounced deceased.
So, and again, if you kind of take a look on your screen, if you look closely, you can see some crime tape there just at the bottom of this light pole. But again, this is where the shooting happened, inside the Swift gas station. And again, as I mentioned, we've been out in this community trying to talk to people and gather a little bit about what happened, about violence in the area. We actually walked over to, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but there's a red food truck, a taco truck that's in the parking lot there. We talked to the owner of that food truck. The owner of that food truck said that deputies, law enforcement have told him not to release any more surveillance video at this time. The gas station said that they are doing that as well. Some other things that we mentioned, as I mentioned, we've been out here trying to talk to people. We're waiting to hear back from Harris County Precinct 3 Constable's office. We reached out to his office to see if they could talk about violence in the area and see how the community is, I guess, coming together around this mass shooting that happened here. I also reached out to Crosby ISD, and they said that none of the individuals that were involved in this shooting, again, those individuals were 16 to 25, so some of those kids might be teenagers. None of them went to a Crosby ISD school. Now, businesses in the area told me that law enforcement told them not to give out any other surveillance video. But in this area, really, there's not really many businesses. There's a lot of rundown buildings. Trying to get some of that surveillance video and talking to people has been hard, but we're working hard to try to gather more details about the tragedy that happened just behind me here over the weekend.
Yeah, Leslie, thank you so much for that report. Lots of good information there. As you guys can see, she's also doing her due diligence, reaching out to not only Crosby ISD, but also the constable's office. Try to, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, because this is certainly not something you want to see happen in your community. All right, we'll get to Leslie again tonight at 5 and 6. Other big story here today, family, friends, and members of the public came together to honor the life and legacy of boxer, pastor, and entrepreneur George Foreman. His memorial service was held earlier today at the Wortham Center, and he was eulogized by Houston Mayor John Whitmire, former boxer Michael Moorer, and Dr. James Douglas, the former president of Texas Southern University. Take a listen.
But those of you old enough to remember, when AIDS was really big, when AIDS first started, it was really ravishing the African American community. But because AIDS was first identified as a gay disease, most African Americans stayed away from it. So George came to me and he said, look, he said, I want to do something for the NAACP. He said, I'm making a lot of money, and I want to make sure I don't want to be like other athletes. I know that I'm making a lot of money because of people like Martin Luther King and the NAACP, and so I want to contribute something to the NAACP. So George ended up contributing $200,000. And at the meeting, he asked me to read this, and I'm going to read you what he asked me to read. It's very short, but it shows what George was all about. And it says, "My brothers and sisters in the struggle, with the ushering in of a new millennium and century," and so this is 2000. "The easiest thing for a successful man to say is, 'Look what I have done,' as if we accomplished everything by ourselves. And for the most part, history is like that. I too have accomplished a lot, but with the help of God, my fellow man, and most importantly, with the aid of the NAACP. NAACPers are among the bravest of them all, those who put their lives on hold, their families in danger, and their love of American freedom first, so that I and so many other younger black Americans can say, 'Look what I have done.' To the NAACP, I say, thank you." That was George. That was George. George gave money to a lot of different organizations. You wouldn't believe it. But the thing that brought me to George was his love for God and his love for everybody else on the face of this earth.
Well, I will forever be connected to George Foreman. We went from being competitors in 1994 to having a relationship built on respect for over 30 years. George is boxing royalty, Olympic gold medalist and a two-time heavyweight champion, and also an inductee into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. This man fought competitively in 4 separate decades. The older George smiled all the time. We remember that smile, right? Do not be fooled. When that bell rung, he was all business. What's so funny? For real? No, I'm joking. George then introduced himself to another generation of boxers and fans as an analyst for HBO Boxing. George was a champion in life. His faith transformed a shy country boy from Texas to a successful businessman and a voice for the less fortunate. His capacity to reinvent himself, learn from the past, and re-engage with the world shaped boxing and the public for over 50 years. We should all learn from the life of George. We should all learn from the life that George led. Rest well, champ.
And what I remember most, certainly remaining in contact periodically through our careers, of all the traits that I could mention, his faith, his family, his boxing career, certainly his business career. The one that stands out to me as a friend of George Foreman, he never forgot where he came from. That is so significant for someone that reached such acclaim and worldwide recognition. He knew and recognized it started in Houston, Texas, in Fifth Ward, Texas. For our guests from out of town, Fifth Ward's about 4 or 5 miles northeast of here, historically neglected community. And about a year ago, George called me. I'd just been sworn in as mayor, and he said, Mayor John, I want you to come out to the house because I want to discuss with you how we can partner to give youth across Houston the opportunity that I received. Now, you remember, George dropped out of Wheatley High when he was 15 years old. Got a second chance of joining the Job Corps. It was a great society opportunity to give young men and women a second chance. He went to San Marcos, got his GED, was recognized for his athletic skills. So he asked me about a year ago, what could we do together? How could we use his ministry to assist young people with an education, health care, job training. It was special. Certainly anyone would welcome, certainly the mayor of this great city, George Foreman, would partner with our city, allow me to be in his presence, to travel this city, mentor young people like he was doing. And of course, he passed too soon. He and I shared the vision, and I want to publicly say today, his vision will live on. I am committed to George's vision across Houston.
You just heard from the mayor there, and along with those words, the mayor also named today George Foreman Day in the city of Houston. Now, ahead of the service, our Nate Griffin caught up with several people who shared some amazing memories, among them George Foreman's brother, Roy. But you're also going to hear from Fox 26 former sports director Mark Berman.
So this is your family.
Yeah.
And most of these people walking in here are your cousins.
Cousins.
I have already just mistakenly walked into like 3.
Now you see why he fought so hard. He had a lot of mouths to help educate and feed, and that he did.
I hear you, man. How you feeling?
I feel good. I mean, it's amazing to see how the city, man, this, when you come from where we came from in Fifth Ward,
Yeah.
It's a point of a time you thought the world forgot about you. But George made the world remember him. And the city didn't forget about him.
Wow, man. That's wow. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, you think, because we grew up at a time that, things were really hard in this country, civil rights and everything else. But he decided he wasn't going to let that stop him. I tell people that, as a young boy, after going through raising all the trouble he did in my mother, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, right? But by the time he was 16, he decided that I'm going to be an asset. He told my mother, I remember this today when he told my mother he left. He says he was going to the job corps to get a job. Well, now to get a training. And they said, we're going to give you, he was going to take an electrical engineer. I always think about that because I remember when the TV shows, the guy used to always say, I want to be an electrical engineer. So George wanted to go get a GED, get electrical training, work on radios and stuff back in them days, right? So he told my mother, I'm going to get a job. I had a younger brother who had polio. And my mother was struggling, the whole family was. And he said, I'm going to come back, I'm going to get you a car. We're going to get you a nice house. We're going to do all these things. My mother like, okay. All she wanted was for him to get out of these streets of Houston. He did that. And along the way, I've taken care of all of my sisters, my brothers, as they went along the way. Kenny Wayne, who was my younger brother with polio. He developed a care for not only his family, but extended family. Along with that, the city, the country. And he fell in love with that. Wow. And to this day, I wear this because when he waved this in the Olympics,
Yeah.
that became his staple for the rest of his life. And people got to understand that he loved this country and the people in it. He lived, man, a life that people, I want, if anybody remember him, they're going to say, oh, the George Foreman, the heavyweight champion of the world, the grill man, all that. But, man, hey, if you want to remember him, you care for the people around you, and the people that come to you and need your help. And if you can do that, then that's the memory of George Foreman, caring for people, because that's what he did.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, Nate.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Much love
Sorry
to you.
about the tears, man.
Don't worry about that. That's part of it, man.
Well, yeah, Nate. But was it 2001? I love telling this story. It was after Tropical Storm Allison. Mm-hmm. The station was running a Red Cross food and clothing drive for people who were in need. And I had gotten back to the station. There was my voicemail was on, so I checked it, and it was a phone call from George. Now, don't get me wrong. He may have called me in the 40 years I covered him. He may have called me twice. He wanted to make a donation. So I'm like, okay, George, what you got? He goes, $250,000. I about had a heart attack. I mean, the man's going to write me a check for $250,000. So we went over to his place, me and Doug Biggers, one of our photographers, and George didn't want any publicity because that's not what this was about. But we convinced him to do it. He signed the check and gave it to me. Then he told me a great story about how he saw people suffering near where he lived. He took his Humvee out into the water and was rescuing people. Unfortunately, that was before the days of cell phone videos, so we never had any video of it, but he did it. And so that's one. And another story that comes to mind was when Muhammad Ali passed away. I was heading home, and it came across the phone about 10 o'clock. I pulled into a McDonald's, I called him, he answered, and his quotes were sensational. He said, "A part of me has just passed with Muhammad," that kind of stuff. So, we covered him. Ralph Cooper and I were the only two reporters who were at his news conference in 1988 or 89 when he announced his comeback. People thought he was crazy. He wasn't crazy. People were laughing. They stopped laughing when he won the championship. So now here we are, and it's still kind of a kick in the gut to know that he's gone.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so many great words from so many people there. Really emotional words there from his brother Roy. That was Nate Griffin at the ceremony or the funeral there earlier today. But I want to bring in Coco Dominguez because Coco, you weren't there at the funeral working or anything. Like, you took your personal time to go and celebrate him as well. Why did you feel the need to do that?
George, and this is probably a little emotional, but he's from the same neighborhood I'm from. The first boxing match I ever went to was Foreman and Schultz, 95. The guy was 20 years younger than him. He beat him by decision, but it was just what he stood for. I was fortunate to sit with like the family and friends today, but it's just such a great man, such an honorable man, such a beautiful service. I mean, the University of Houston choir performed, he got a proclamation, and people just really spoke of love. I mean, that's who George was. He just loved his community. He loved his people. He never forgot about where he came from. And they told of stories where he would build houses and all his cousins and family just so they could all live together. He would cross over flooded waters just to go rescue his parents from the water. His sons are like, "Y'all get ready, we're carrying granddaddy and grandma back here." Just beautiful stories of love. And it was just, I had to go and show some respect. And not to mention the times that I've gotten a chance to interview him. He's always so gracious. At the sports awards, he even thought about being a wrestler at one point. But he was scared of the main wrestler, you know. But just such an honorable man, and not to mention an amazing boxer.
And then you also brought the program. Let's see the program.
Yeah, this is the program that was given to family and friends, and it just has really a little bit about what some of the tributes were that his family gave. It's got some, some great pictures in there, and that's one thing that they didn't lack, is lots of pictures and grandkids and everyone who wanted to celebrate him. And he had a huge family, of course. We know all the Georges, all his sons. But what a great tribute and an honor it was to be there.
Yeah, I'm glad you got a chance to really do that. It's kind of cool being from the same community, like celebrating him in that way. We're going to hear more from you tonight, right?
Yes,
You're going to
absolutely.
talk more about it tonight
on the newsfeed at 10.
All right, Coco, thank you so much. Hey, and when we come back here, consumer reporter Heather Sullivan, she's going to be talking to us here about some last minute things you guys can do because that tax deadline is tomorrow. So get it done, folks. Stay tuned. Right after this quick break, you'll hear more from Heather.
Okay, well, we've been trying to warn you for weeks, but now it's just about the deadline. It's tomorrow to file your taxes. So Douglas Horde from My Tax Guy in Houston joins us with what you should do if you haven't quite finished up your taxes yet. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, so what should someone do if they're down to the wire now and they haven't really gotten started?
Well, you should extend if you can. There's only two ways you can do it at this point. If you can find someone who can file that for you electronically, a tax service, a lot of times they'll help you with that if you commit to use them to prepare your taxes and probably pay a deposit. But the other thing you can do is you can look up the Austin IRS office's FedEx delivery address and FedEx them that extension form for overnight delivery today.
And so, yeah, just mailing it, getting it date stamped today at the post office isn't enough, I guess, because it has to be there by tomorrow.
With the post office, they've made some changes that most people aren't aware of. When you drop your mail at the local post office, that's not the date of mailing. It's the date that your mail is processed at the regional postal processing center. And that can frequently take 2 or 3 days. So
yeah, that is a big change. I'm glad you pointed that out. Maybe, people are trying to get it finished, but they're just not going to make it, by the deadline. Then what should they do?
Extend, of course. But the one thing that people can do to protect themselves from penalties and interest is to go online, irs.gov/payments, and make an extension payment. The amount that you should pay, you look at last year's tax return at the total tax, and you have to pay 90% of that in for 2024 before tomorrow. So you look at your W-2 and your other withholdings forms. How much did you already pay in? Compare that to the 90% number. And if you would owe more to get to the 90%, send that in.
So if you are sending in that check, can you take that to the post office, or do you need to FedEx that as well?
I would not do either. I would only pay online.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the fastest way. And then, of course, people need to be mindful if you do file that extension, then what do you need to keep in mind to make sure you're on top of things when they come due again?
The first thing to keep in mind is stop procrastinating. The next thing to keep in mind is you have until October 15th to file your personal tax return. That's the extended deadline, but don't wait that long.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Douglas Horde, owner of My Tax Guy in Houston, thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we've helped people dig themselves out of a little procrastination today. We appreciate it.
All right, welcome back to Houston Live and Local. It's the last couple of minutes of our half-hour broadcast. So I can't let you guys go without talking about the forecast. It's the all-important forecast here. It's Monday. You guys are planning your week. I know this weekend the weather was really nice. A lot of folks went to church. Lots of people celebrating for Passover, Palm Sunday, and lots of plans as well as we head into the Easter weekend. So without further ado, I'm going to take a nice little walk over here to meteorologist Ramisha Shade. And we're going to talk very briefly here about the forecast. If you miss any of it too, remember, you guys can join us on our 5 and 6 o'clock newscast. You can grab a seat right here. And then I'm going to give her the mic. I'm sorry. Bumper cars. Here we go.
Cars.
How's it going today, Nish?
Going great, going great. Enjoying my Monday.
Enjoying your Monday. Same. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. I
Good.
was here.
All right.
And I saw you were out at the park.
I was out at the park. trying to get
Sylvester
some
Turner
friends.
Park.
Yeah, it was a great weekend, man. Celebrating him, and lots of folks came out, so that was
Cool.
good.
And perfect weather.
And perfect weather. So is it like perfect weather this week for the park even?
For the majority of the week, we'll
Okay.
say.
Okay.
There will be some changes, kind of a pattern change as we head into Easter weekend, but we are going to have a pretty quiet week, I think, for Saturday, Easter Sunday. That's when the rain chances will get bumped up a little bit, especially Easter Sunday. So if you do have some outdoor plans for Easter Sunday, that's a day you may have to kind of watch the weather a little closer and plan on potential delays. But yeah, most of this work week looking great. Good Friday plans outside looking good.
How's the humidity? Because sometimes in Houston it can be like the air you can wear, like you can feel it when you walk outside. Are we going to see an increase in humidity at all?
Well,
Kind of remain dry? What's the plan on
we
that?
actually have a cold front dropping in overnight through tomorrow morning, so humidity levels tomorrow will be lower. But then as we get closer to the end of the week, Easter weekend, guess what? We're
They
bumping them
ramp
back
back
up.
up.
We're creeping them, creeping back up. So as we get into Saturday, Easter Sunday, it looks pretty muggy. So we're gonna have to deal with the humidity, and we're gonna have to deal with some temps in the 80s, and then unfortunately for Easter, about a 40 to 50% chance for some rain.
All
So
right. Well, thank you, Ramisha.
no problema.
Anything else you want to mention real quick? We got about a minute left.
Hopefully your taxes are done.
Hopefully your taxes are done.
Taxes taxes are due tomorrow. So if you're going to be scrambling, trying to run errands to get that finished, hey, weather should be quiet for that. And of course, we've got our big holiday weekend. That's like I said, when the weather will change a little bit. But bottom line, it's looking pretty good this
Yeah,
week.
we'll take it.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mish. Get my microphone back. So we got to working on a couple things here for our newscast, evening newscast. But I also want to remind you guys that you can download Fox Local and you guys can watch Forecasting with Friends. So Ramesh and I just talked about briefly what's happening in the weather. But if you missed any of that, we also have Mike Iskovitz and JD and Allison. They all kind of come together every day of the week and give you guys some content over there, right? It's called Forecasting with Friends. So check them out. And that's it for me on the 2 o'clock edition of Houston Live and Local. We'll see you back here on the stream at 7 o'clock. Have a good one.